we'll start the introduction, right, of JMeter and all. Then how to install JMeter. Okay, so JMeter is a tool which is based on Java. So for that, Java is definitely required. So we'll see how to install, Java, how to set up the environment variables for Java so that JMeter can work correctly. Then coming to the download of JMeter. So how to download JMeter, how to install JMeter, how to launch JMeter on Windows. Okay, that we are going to see. And then we are going to frequently use developer tool also. So what is a developer tool in the browser? That I am going to explain you. In that I'll tell you about the concept of HTTP request, HTTP, okay, and then the user actions, user sessions, cache, cookie, embedded resources. Then most of the web applications communicate through the HTTPS protocol. So we are going to see the details about HTTPS protocol, because if you do not understand these concepts, you will never become a master in performance testing. So you need to understand these concepts. Fundamentals are very, very important, very essential. What is a request? What is a response? What is a header? What are the different types of requests? What are the different status codes? So that will be covering in the details of the HTTPS protocol. Then coming to the script development, this is the phase which most trainees look for, right? How to develop the test scripts in JMeter. So first we will see what are the different major elements of JMeter. So there are 12 major elements or components. In addition to that, there are components, but the 12 major elements we are going to see. What is the significance of those 12 major elements, how to use them. Then there is one item known as proxy server for JMeter setup. Okay, we need to set up the proxy server for JMeter, but why that is required, what is the use of that, in-depth understanding we are going to get during the session. In each and every session, whenever there are any interview questions around it, all the interview questions will be discussed. Okay, then I'll show you how to do the test script recording from different browsers, okay, with the demo as well. And then sometimes what happens is, when we develop or when we record the scripts, some irrelevant requests, okay, get also fetched in the test script recording. So how to filter them? Then JMeter has a root certificate for scripting purpose. It is required for scripting or recording. So how to generate that certificate, then how to install that certificate in different browsers, that we are going to see. Then I'm going to show you how to record a test script. Okay, how to record a test script, that also I'll show you in different browsers. Clear all of you? How to record a test script. Then now that certificate which we installed or which we generated, it has a certain validity. Now how long it is valid for, and does it expire? Okay, so once it is expired, what we need to do, those all things we are going to see as well. Then there is one important element, the test script recorder element, which is used to record the test script. We'll see the details about that particular test script recorder element. The attributes, okay, the attributes of the test script recorder, the significance of the test script recorder, that we are going to see. What are the best practices which we follow for the test script recording, that I'm going to discuss. So the best practices with respect to the different settings which you need to do in the test script recorder, as well as for the recording, what are the best practices I'm going to discuss. Inside JMeter, there will be different files, there will be different folders, that we are going to discuss. And I'm going to explain you the different properties files. Okay, what is the use of different properties files. Any queries anyone till now?
Yeah, so JMeter works similarly on Windows OS and Linux, is it?
Yes,
Okay. So it is platform independent.
it is platform independent. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Any other queries anyone?
Like, how much of coding experience is required for learning JMeter?
I would say zero, but basic coding under coding knowledge you should means coding knowledge means like the concept
Mhm.
of variables, right? Scope,
Okay.
those all
Mhm.
things definitely you need. But yes,
Mhm.
if you ask me if I need any particular programming language to learn at least the
Mhm.
basics, or at least I should be able to deliver, means to become a beginner or intermediate in JMeter, you do not
Mhm.
need any coding experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does it work on the UI layer or on the layer beyond it?
So it has different modes, like
Okay.
through the UI you can use it, or
Mm,
there are server modes, then
mm.
non UI or the CLI mode. Okay, so there are different modes which we are going, means they are there in the below course content.
Okay. And what version of JMeter are we targeting now? What is the latest?
The latest is 5.5.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Any other queries anyone? Okay, so then we will see the JMeter plugin manager. Now JMeter as a tool has its core features. Okay, and the best benefit out of it is that it is an open source tool, guys. It is an open source tool. So there are some core features available, right? But because it is an open source tool, throughout the world many developers are also contributing to it. Okay, and additional features can be available on JMeter with the help of one element known as plugin. Okay, so there are different JMeter plugins available. So we are going to see those JMeter plugins and the JMeter plugin manager, which will enhance the capability of JMeter. So how to install the plugins, how to uninstall the plugins, how to use the plugins, that we are going to see. Then everyone says we have to do performance testing, but for what scenarios you want to do performance testing? Which are the scenarios which will be the candidates for performance testing? That is very much necessary, right? So that also we are going to understand. And then when we are defining, or we are finalizing the scenarios for our performance testing, what are the steps, how should you do that? Okay, the documentation part, that also I'll be showing. And then we are going to do the end-to-end recording of the scenario which we saw. Okay, which we will see that these are the scenarios which are in scope of the recording, and we are going to do the end-to-end recording of those scenarios. Then the test script generation, once you do the recording, the generation of the test script. And then if you only do the recording, the script is not ready, guys. If that would be the case, everyone would be a master on JMeter or any other performance testing tool. Once the test script is generated, we have to do some enhancements to make our script robust. But again, that is not at all a difficult task. There are a few concepts which we have to understand. We have to apply them to our test script, and our test script will be enhanced and it will be robust. Clear? So I'm going to explain you how to enhance those test scripts, what are the best practices which you should follow to, while enhancing the JMeter test script. Then we come to two important concepts. One is correlation, the other one is parameterization. You all must have heard, right? If you have given any interviews on performance testing, the first time they will ask is like, what is correlation, what is parameterization. Correlation is a must question, and many a times people do not understand that concept. Okay, so that I'm going to clarify clearly. You are not going to have any doubts on that, and why this correlation is required, why this parameterization is required, that I'm going to explain. And then how to, now you understood the concept, let's say correlation and parameterization, but how you are going to implement it, right? How you are going to implement it, that we are going to see in the regular expression in JMeter, regular expression extractor in JMeter, and also some more examples. So correlation actually deals with the dynamic values, okay, the dynamic values which are generated by the server. Now JMeter as a tool has to handle those, right? So we will be seeing the use cases, how to enable that in JMeter. Then comes CSV dataset config component. So this component is used for parameterization. Okay. Now these topics would be very much new to you, but once we go through the course, once we cover each and every session one by one, you will become more and more confident. It will be just like a cakewalk for you. Okay, so parameterization we are going to do with CSV dataset config element, that is nothing but to set up our test data. Now just think, functional testing, they will test some scenarios, right? For that they need test data also, but the amount of test data which they are going to require is very less. But in case of performance testing, let's say you must have understood or you must have heard that we do the test with 500 users, 1000 users, 10,000 users. So if the number of users are huge, definitely your test data requirement will also be huge, right? So you have to set up the test data accordingly, otherwise the tests will not get executed successfully. So we are going to see how to set up the test data for the parameterization, and how to do that using which component. So using the CSV dataset config component, you can do the test data setup in JMeter. Along with that, you can use two more components, and these are plugins. I told you, right? There are some core features available in JMeter, but you can enhance the capability of JMeter by the use of plugins. Now these two plugins we will have installed, and we are going to see the use of those plugins like random CSV dataset config or extended CSV dataset config. These two plugins are also we are going to see. So by the end of this particular section, no, you will be completely a master on your test script development. Okay, how to do the test script development, you would be very much clear. How how your test script will look like. Okay, you should be very much clear by now. Then we are going to see BlazeMeter. You all must have heard about BlazeMeter. Why BlazeMeter is famous and all, right? Now, sometimes what happens is you will get one interview question on this also. If JMeter is not able to capture my events, what should I do? And there are different options for that, okay, which I'll discuss in details. So one of them is you do the test script recording with the BlazeMeter extension. So that also I am going to show you how to do the test script development with the BlazeMeter extension. So I'll tell you the introduction to the BlazeMeter, what is that. Along with that, I'm going to explain you or show you how to do the test script development with BlazeMeter. Then the hot topics in current industry trends: Kubernetes, Docker, microservices, micro front ends. Most of the applications nowadays are getting developed on these technologies, guys. Okay, now I'll explain you to the world of microservices, Kubernetes, Dockers. These are, the trending topics nowadays, guys. Okay. So we'll also see one application based on the microservices architecture, then how to do the test script development for microservices and micro frontends. That also I'm going to explain. Any queries, anyone till now? Okay. Then comes JMeter test execution. Okay. Now that we have seen how to develop the test scripts, how to enhance the test scripts. So once you record, you enhance the test scripts. So let us assume that our test script is ready for execution. It is completely developed. Now we have to do the execution. So I'll show you how. Now there was a question, right, in which mode and all it can be operated. So I was telling you JMeter can be operated in the GUI mode, in the non-GUI mode. Now in the first line itself, we are saying that test execution in the non-GUI mode with the best practices. And there is a specific reason why non-GUI mode is mentioned here. I'll explain you in details in the training. Then we have a heap size setting for JMeter during execution. Why that is required, how to do that, I'm going to explain. We have then a test summarizer. So when your test will get executed in the non-GUI mode, you will be able to see the results on the command line interface. So that particular section is known as test summarizer. I'll explain you and make you understand about the test summarizer. What are its attributes? You can increase, you can decrease the summarizer time. So that I'm going to show you. How to stop the test in the non-GUI mode, that I'm going to show you. Okay, how to stop the test. Then you can also do the execution in the GUI mode, but there are limitations to that, which I'm going to explain in details during the training. So what is, how to do the test execution in GUI mode, but what are the limitations for doing the test execution in GUI mode. Then JMeter being an open source tool, does it generate any reports? Okay, once our test execution is completed, yes, it generates the HTML report, which will contain the details of the execution, the results from the execution. So how to generate that in GUI mode, then how to generate that in non-GUI mode, that we are going to see. Importance of the JTL file. Okay, what is JTL file? Your test results file, that is the JMeter test log. Okay, it is basically a log file in which all your test results are logged. So what is the importance of that? Then how to understand the JMeter HTML report, how to analyze the JMeter HTML report, what are the key areas to look at in the report. And when in the HTML report, the response time values are displayed in milliseconds. Okay, the response time values are displayed in milliseconds. How to change those values to seconds, that we are going to see. Then comes one very important topic, that is the JMeter functions. Okay, JMeter functions. Now someone was asking, do we need coding language? Definitely, if these functions were not available, we would have to write custom code also most of the times. But our life has been made easy. JMeter comes with many inbuilt functions. Okay, using those inbuilt, able to achieve so many different functionalities. For example, let's say in any of your request which is going to the server, current system timing is required to pass in the request. So during your test execution, how are you going to do that? Right? I just give an example that in your request, the current system time value is going. Now during execution, you cannot manually, capture the system time and send it in your requests, right? So for that, you need to have some feature. So JMeter functions, you can enable that functionality. Okay, with JMeter functions, you can do that. Clear? Then there is another important function that is known as the P function, the property function. Using the P function, we will be, seeing how can we parameterize different parameters using the P function, and then how can we pass the arguments from the command line interface during the non-GUI execution. Arguments. What are arguments? These are inputs basically. For example, I want to add two numbers. For that, I have written a function like to add two numbers. So what will be the arguments for that? Definitely two numbers, right? Two numbers will be the arguments for that method which I have written to add two numbers. Similarly, in JMeter, while JMeter is also a tool, so it also accepts different arguments. So in non-GUI execution mode also, you can pass different arguments. So I'm going to show you how to pass the arguments from the command line interface during non-GUI execution. Then scope, very important, right? We have JMeter elements, we have JMeter variables. So what is the scope of those JMeter elements, JMeter variables, that we are going to see. Then I'm going to tell you about the concept of local variable and global variable in JMeter. It is very easy, guys. Okay, very easy, don't worry. So local variable and global variable. Then what is an relative path and absolute path in JMeter, and how to set it up, that I am going to explain you. Any queries, anyone till now? On the course curriculum till now? Any of the points? Any doubts? Then I'll take you to an important concept known as distributed testing, or you all must have heard about master slave concept in JMeter, right? So many people do not understand that also. That I'm going to explain in details. What is distributed testing, why that is required, how to implement distributed testing, what are the best practices which you need to follow, what are the important conditions which you should uh, fulfill in order to implement distributed testing. So how to do the distributed testing in JMeter using GUI mode as well as non-GUI mode, that I'm going to explain. Now that your test script is ready, you have understood about different executions. So we are going to see the test execution and reporting. So once you do the test execution, how are you going to basically gather the metrics from the test execution, how to analyze those results, how you will do the reporting, that I'm going to explain you. Then the test execution with bandwidth throttling. Now what is this bandwidth throttling? Network virtualization, guys. Testing the performance of an application over different network bandwidths. Now you'll ask me, what is that requirement? The requirement is that if your application is accessible from different locations and the network bandwidth is not the same in all the different locations, is your performance going to be the same? No. So with this comes an important question. Does JMeter support test execution with different network bandwidths? The answer is yes, and that is what I'm going to show you as well. Test execution with BlazeMeter. I'm going to show you how you can do the test execution with BlazeMeter also. So by now you will be able to deliver a performance testing project. Okay, by at the end of these topics, you should be confident in developing the test script, in doing the test execution, in the test reporting. Now we are going to get into the more advanced one stage. Okay, so there are different elements in JMeter. So whatever elements we would have already used here, that you are going to frequently use them, and I would have already explained them by now. Okay. However, there are other elements also, and you need to know their use as well. So that is what I'm going to tell you. Like, what is a test plan? I would have already covered earlier. What is a thread group? I would have already covered. Controller elements, some controller elements I would have already covered, but the remaining ones also, like, not all definitely, because all the controllers are not required. So some controllers which are important and which could be used, that I'm going to explain. So what are the different controller elements, what is their use, how to use them in your JMeter. Then sampler elements. Okay, what is a sampler? So in previous sections we would have gone through the HTTP request sampler. Okay, but there are some other additional samplers. I'll tell you about those samplers as well. Config elements. What are the different config elements in JMeter? What is their use? Similarly, what are the different assertion elements in JMeter and how to use assertion in your test script? Assertion means validation of your result. So during recording or during your manual, verification, you can know that yes, I'm getting this particular response or I'm getting this particular page. So my application is working fine. But when your test execution is in progress, you cannot verify it manually, right? In JMeter. So you need to apply assertion to your test scripts also. Timer elements. How can you provide timing in between your scripts, in between your transactions, in between your iterations? That I'm going to explain. So that with that you will come to know what is pacing and think time. Pacing and think time. Listener elements in JMeter, pre-processor elements, post-processor elements. That also we are going to see in details. Any queries anyone till now?
So, in which part is the actual scripting? Is it in that sampler or something that you were telling?
No, your scripting will consist of different elements. So your scripting means you are going to construct a test plan. Your test plan
Mm,
will consist of different elements. Okay. And it will
mm,
use config elements, it will use thread group, it will use controller, it will use sampler, it will use listener, it will use test script recorder. So this test script, test scripting, right? JMeter scripting.
mm.
In this only I would have covered the minimum elements which you need. Okay, means with that
Okay,
knowledge you should be able to develop the test scripts. But along with that, there are
okay,
other elements also, right? Which you need knowledge about. Okay, so
yeah.
those things we are going to cover below. Because if I feed you so much in the beginning itself and you are not able to
Mm,
digest it, then you will think that, oh my god, where did I come, right? So
okay.
we are going to take those steps, such that you understand the
Mm,
concepts, you are
mm.
able to implement it, you are becoming confident, and then you are grasping or taking more things into your brain. Understood?
Yeah.
Yeah. Clear, all of you? So now you know. Okay. Any other queries, anyone? Then we come to the advanced ones, the InfluxDB and Grafana integration. So what is InfluxDB? What is Grafana? You must have heard about these tools, I believe. So, InfluxDB is a database, time series database. Grafana is basically, it is a dashboard kind of thing wherein you will be able to see the results and all in real time. So I'll show you how to integrate JMeter with InfluxDB and Grafana so that whenever your test execution is in progress, you will be able to see the results in real time. Okay. Then comes Groovy. You all must have heard about Groovy. or let's say bin shell. This is where sometimes, okay, JMeter is a tool. It has so many different features, so many different capabilities. But let's say there are some complex scenarios in your application which you are not able to handle with JMeter. That will be very rare, guys. Okay, that will be very rare. However, let's say there are some complex scenarios which you are not able to do with JMeter. Now, guys, remember we have now come to the advanced topics. Okay, the master topics. So in that case, you might need to write some custom code, and that brings us to Groovy. You can use JavaScript, you can use bin shell, you can use Groovy, you can use Jexel. So there are different types of scripting languages you can use, but the most preferred one is Groovy because it has higher performance than other scripting languages, and that is why I am recommending Groovy to learn. That is why I have included Groovy scripting also in my course content. But again, don't get scared. Whatever is required, that we are going to cover, and that also you will be able to do. That is not an issue. Okay. But again, this Groovy will be required in very rare cases in JMeter or in your performance testing. So I'll tell you about